Good morning. Didn't want to throw you all by being on time, but we are. So welcome to the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, whoever you are, wherever you come from. For this hour, we are one gathered congregation, and all are truly welcome. And please rise in body or spirit, so you can be at choice, to join in singing our musical call to worship this morning, which is Come Sing a Song With Me. It's hymn number 346 in the gray hymnal, which is called Singing the Living Tradition. And you'll also see things on the screen. Wow, that was fun. I always love that song because I have a daughter, Rose, who grew up here, so I have a rose in the wintertime. All right, my name is Marcia Kristen. I am a lay leader today. I'm wearing glasses, and I have what I would call a teal sweater on. I use she, her pronouns. I first came to KUF because my family and I, my 3 kids and my partner, we went to India to go to a very good friend's wedding. And at that time, it was the day of the tsunami back in 2004. And like Alan Searle, I know I saw him, spoke about a few weeks ago, is that going through that area with so many people, so much spirituality, so many different religions, it made no sense to me that this could be wrong. And then I came back, and I remembered that this place was here and started coming. So that was about 20 years ago. I would also love to invite a nice, maybe communal breath together, if you want, breathing however you would like, to honor the land acknowledgement and reading of that so it stays alive in a moment. But I do want to say that our guest speaker this morning, which I'm very excited about, is Reverend Natalie Malter. Welcome. She is a UU minister and doctoral student in the study of religion at Harvard University. And currently, she's an affiliated community minister at Edmonds Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And previously, she worked as the Unitarian Universalist chaplain in the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life at Wellesley College, where she mentored college students and supported young adult faith formation. And if you are visiting us this morning, we really invite you to participate as you feel comfortable. If you're here in person, we look forward to welcoming you out in the foyer during our coffee and tea hour. And if you're attending online, please introduce yourself in the chat as you would like. And remember that although it's just a camera over there, there's actually quite a number of people that join online, and we're really happy to be able to continue that accessibility for folks. In either way, in person or online, in whatever way you're here, we're glad you're here. And we do have a request that if you're able to silence your electronic devices that you do not need this morning so that we can honor this sacred space. And I just have a few announcements this morning. We have one final announcement regarding our online auction, which I'm going to invite Reverend, wow, I just made you a reverend, Liz Roberts to come forward.
Let's be clear, I'm not a reverend, but I am a librarian. Anyway, good morning, KUUF. My name is Liz Roberts, and I use she, her pronouns. I have dark hair, wear glasses, and this morning I'm wearing a red plaid blouse. But most importantly, I am fortunate to be a member of your 2024 auction team. We are now less than 8 hours away from the end of this year's auction. We all had high hopes, and you have come through beautifully. Now, by 8:30 this morning, we had already reached 98% of our $20,000 budgeted goal for this auction, but moments ago, I peeked, and it's rounding up to 100%, but we are not yet to $20,000, and here is where you come in. It is not time to stop bidding. I'm not suggesting you bid during church. However, if you have ever run a race, did you stop? I'm almost there. No, you run through the tape. So people, come on, bid. We're going to run through the tape. It stops at 6 p.m. tonight. Now, if you haven't yet perused the 300 plus items ranging in value from just $3 up to thousands, you are really missing out. This is your chance, for instance, to pick up a complete set of Wedgwood china for your Thanksgiving feast. Don't miss your chance to pick up an original piece of artwork by your very own KUUF artist. We have several. And did you know we actually have not one, but two that I know of, published authors among us, and they have autographed books in this year's auction. People, go home and bid. Our 2024 High Hopes auction ends at 6 p.m. As I said, you have nearly 8 hours left. This afternoon and this evening, bid early and bid often. Now, there's one way that bidding goes on after 6 p.m. I know you're excited about this. If you are actively or others are actively bidding on an item at 6 p.m., there is a 5-minute extension so you can still get that beloved item you want. That will continue as long as people are actively bidding. So you know what I need you to do. Winning bidders, by the way, will be able to pick up their items starting next Sunday, the 17th, in the admin room. And to save some credit card processing fees, we prefer you pay by check or cash. Now, thank you for having high hopes for our fellowship and the 2024 auction. If you have any questions, there are several of us either wearing a badge or you might know who we are. We're on the auction team. Hooray!
Yes.
Thank you so much. Also, one other announcement is that today in the sanctuary from 12 to 2 is session 3 of the Starting Point curriculum. And today is on deep listening to ourselves. And it's facilitated, by yours truly, and the Healthy Communications team. And I think right now we really need some deep listening. So all are welcome. You don't have to have registered beforehand. It's open to new to UU and also people who have been UUs or are still exploring, so meet us there. Okay, now a deep breath maybe too, another one. We want to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Reverend Natalie Malter. Thank you so much for that introduction, Marcia. And I'm so honored to be joining you all here in worship this morning. I have a brown hair and I'm wearing a multicolored jacket. I'm told it's important to mention that it's a little bit sparkly as well. And I use she, her pronouns. And I have to admit that getting to sit together and sing about the fact that hope is hard to find was something that felt really important to me this morning. So thank you all so much for coming together in this complicated and challenging week that we are all moving through. It's so good to be together. Our opening words this morning come from the Reverend Katie Kandarian Morris, who writes, "Here we have come into this sacred place, quieter now with our readiness, hushed voices, hoping, trusting for so many things, for connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for healing, for wholeness, for words, for music, for celebration, for consolation. Here we have come into this space, bringing all of who we are. Let us be willing, however we are, here, changed. Come, let us worship together."
Thank you so much. I want to welcome a longtime member, Rosemary Dougal, to come up to light our chalice. Rosemary chairs the worship committee, which tirelessly works with Reverend Victoria and guest speakers to plan our Sunday services. And I think you've been on the worship committee more than once. So I want to acknowledge that. Rosemary appreciates doing this work because she believes shared worship is a way for us to find meaning together. And you can look for her after the service to learn how you can be involved in worship at KUF. So join me now in lighting our chalice, and if you have your own chalice or candle at home, you can light it as I read our chalice lighting words. This is called "We Come to This Time" by Reverend David Pohl. You might recognize these words. We come to this time and this place to rediscover the wondrous gift of free religious community, to renew our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life, to reaffirm the way of the open mind and the full heart, to rekindle the flame of memory and hope, and to reclaim the vision of an earth made just with all her people one. Thank you. And you can join me now in the spoken affirmation. The words will appear on the screen. We gather as a caring community, seeking life's deeper meanings. We value diversity and affirm the worth of all living things. Strive to speak truth in love, to act for justice, to grow in spirit, and to care for the earth. We celebrate with open hearts and minds the creative power that sustains and transforms us. And our next hymn is Love Will Guide Us. It's universalism's call to change the world with our love. And the truth is, we can still be moved to refocus on love despite the hard nights we've recently experienced in whatever form that may have come, and we will continue to do so. There's a final note. The tomb was named Olympia after Olympia Brown, the first woman to be fully ordained in America in the Universalist Church. And like many before her and many since, she was warned, an explanation given, yet nevertheless, she persisted. So please rise in body or spirit to join in singing number 131, Love Will Guide Us, in the Singing the Living Tradition hymnal, the gray hymnal.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
And now, retired school librarian Liz Roberts will chair the time for all ages.
Oh, yeah? What's your question? Yes, we can. In fact, I thought about challenging us to, just go over. Oh, it just now? Okay, thank you. Woohoo, we're over 20. But yes, let's keep going. Yes, we can blow the top off the thermometer. All right, I need a different hat. Good morning. My name is Liz Roberts. Because Monday, November 11th is Veterans Day, I'm going to read The Poppy Lady, a picture book biography of Moyna Bell Michael. It is written by Barbara Elizabeth Walsh with paintings by Lane Johnson. Now, while I read this story, please try to notice when Moyna listened to her still small voice and how she took her ideas to help her serve needs greater than herself. Moyna grew up in Georgia during the Civil War and tried to live by her motto, "Whatsoever your hands find to do, do it with all your might." March 1917, German U-boats had sunk another American ship, and the nation was outraged. Would the president call for war? Would Congress agree? Moyna Bell Michael prayed not. She had been touring Europe when war first broke out there in the summer of 1914. But now, bomb craters, trenches, barbed wire barriers, and battlefields covered the beautiful countryside, visions that still made her shudder. April 1917, Moyna was struck by the thundering headline on the newspaper, "Wilson asking for war." Moyna promised that she would let the students know as soon as the president and Congress had reached a decision. Before dawn, the newspaper finally arrived. Moina read Wilson's inspiring plea to defend democracy, defend the rights of small nations, defend the freedom of the seas. America was going to war. Moina vowed to do everything she could for the soldiers, to remember them. Moina knitted socks and sweaters. She rolled bandages for the Red Cross, and when enlisted friends and students came to say goodbye, why, she gave them a little remembrance to take overseas. But Moina wanted to do more. She delivered books, magazines, and candy to the camps nearby. She and her friends invited soldiers home for dinner, and I felt privileged to give my best welcome to these lads in my country's uniform. And when it was time for them to leave, Moina went to the train station to see them off, and my heart was thrilled with pride for their bravery, courage, and cheerfulness. They were so young. They were so innocent of the dangers they were to face. But Moina needed to do even more. To become a canteen worker for the YMCA. In the fall of 1918, she headed for New York City and the training program at the Y headquarters, which she successfully completed, but was then told she was too old to go overseas. Moina refused to give up, but what could she do now? Help the soldiers before they left for war. As winter approached, the large room in the basement where soldiers and Marines gathered during their free time turned gray and gloomy. The soldiers deserved a brighter, more comfortable place. Moina knew what to do. With her small salary, Moina bought fresh flowers and placed them throughout the room. But she needed to do even more. One Saturday morning, a soldier left a magazine at her desk. Moina turned to a marked page to find "We Shall Not Sleep" by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, a Canadian physician. She had read this poem many times before, but she read it again and was touched by McCrae's tribute to the soldiers that he could not save on the battlefields in Flanders, Belgium. The poem was most strikingly illustrated in color. Spirits of soldiers appeared to float above a battleground covered in white crosses and bright red poppies. There were no names on the crosses, no memory of who rested beneath the red poppies, and Moina knew what she had to do. She read the last verse slowly. To Moina, it seemed as though the silent voices again were vocal and whispering. She thought of her friends and students and the soldiers at the Y, and she knew she could never forget them. She then turned over an envelope and wrote out this pledge, ending with a promise. And now the torch and poppy red we wear in honor of our dead. Fear not that ye have died for naught. Will teach the lessons that ye wrought in Flanders fields. Soon, Moina was surrounded by men all wanting to wear poppies of their own to honor their buddies that were now sleeping among the poppies of Flanders field. Moina announced, "I shall buy red poppies. I shall always wear red poppies, poppies of Flanders field." Moina went poppy hunting in the streets of New York. It had never occurred to me the difficulty I would have in finding artificial poppies of Flanders fields in the many novelty shops of New York City. At last, at Wanamaker's department store, she found one large and 24 small red silk poppies, and Moina pinned one on her cloak collar and hurried back to the Y. It was evening, and the room was quiet. Moina placed the large red poppy in the vase on her desk and handed out the other 23 smaller ones to the men and women leaving soon for France. She watched as they pinned them onto their uniforms, and still, Moina needed to do even more. She would not stop until every American wore a poppy to remember the soldiers. Always. 2 days after Moina bought those 25 poppies, World War I ended. But eventually, Americans wanted to forget the horrors of war and get on with their lives. Moina spent the next few years teaching returning veterans and working to make the red poppy more than just a tribute to soldiers who didn't return. She spent much of her time and much of her money to urge various groups to adopt the Flanders Fields Memorial Poppy to honor and support veterans. Several national and international veterans organizations went on to do so, and people began donating money in exchange for a small paper red poppy to help support veterans. Some of you or some of your grandparents may have these. On this weekend before Veterans Day, may we all be inspired by the story of Moina and how she, as a young girl and then as a young woman and as an older woman, listened to that still small voice of what she could do to help others in the world. And may all of us, grown-ups and kids alike, listen carefully for our own small voices to take our light and love out to the world. Would you please rise now in body or in spirit to help me sing the children on the way to their class? The words to May You Go in Joy will appear on our screens.
We gather as a religious community to give each one of us a place where we can do the work of many. Together, our light is much brighter than a solitary flame. And now is the time in our service when we share in the sacred act of giving, an expression of gratitude transformed into generosity that breathes life into our mission. As part of our mission that inspires us to act on our beliefs, we share a weekly offering with a local nonprofit agency providing services within the larger community. And our charitable giving recipient for the month of November is the Bremerton chapter of the NAACP, which along with 500,000 adult and youth members throughout the United States are frontline advocates committed to raising awareness for political, educational, social, and economic equality of diverse groups in the electoral process. In a moment, our ushers will move among us with some baskets while we listen, and they will collect the offering. Donations placed in the basket will go to the NAACP Bremerton chapter, and if you would like your offering to go to KUF, you can use one of the envelopes that was part of your order of service. For those of us joining online, you can go to our website, kuf.org, and there's a giving tab for PayPal and mailing information. If this is your first time at KUF, please feel free to let the basket pass. Your presence is presence enough. Now let there be an offering and to strengthen and sustain our beloved community, which is sacred to us. We get to enjoy a gift of music, The Touch of the Hand, by S. Michael Free and A. Lawrence Leon, and performed by Rick Vanderhol.
Tis the touch of the hand in this world that counts. The touch of your hand of your hand and mine, which means far more to the troubled heart than shelter, bread, or wine. For shelter is gone when the night is o'er, and bread lasts only a day. But the touch of your hand and the sound of your voice lives on in the soul always. Tis the touch of the hand in this world that counts. The touch of your hand and mine, which means far more to the troubled heart than shelter, bread, or wine. The touch of your hand, the touch of your hand, of your hand and mine.
Thank you so much. Now is the time for our joys and sorrows, and when shared together, our joys might be amplified, and our sorrows, although may not always be lessened, but they can be held with care and companionship. So today we have a few sorrows and joys. We have a sorrow from Emily Lacrosse Lambert, saying, my grandfather Charles Lambert passed away yesterday, and we will miss him dearly. So this is for that. And I actually have a joy that our son Keith got a job with benefits in this challenging time. A lot of you saw him as a little kid. So he is now supporting independent documentaries, which I'm very thankful for. Not just the other part. We also have a candle of concern from Liz Roberts and Brian Watson, a concern for our dear friend Bruce, who died this past Thursday. Our hearts break for his teenage son Spencer and former husband Russ, and I hope so much we can hold them in our hearts. Thank you. And then we have has a joy, or sorrow, maybe both, that is sad to have to acknowledge in our tragic state of affairs, at least with the agonizing election results this past week. There is yet to be any violence that we know of. I'm holding a lot of care for that as we go forward. And I want to light and have Bonner light one last candle for those joys and sorrows that are still too tender to share.
Will you please join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer? Spirit of life and of love, God of many names and of no name at all, we come to you on this November morning, hearts full of the joys and sorrows that shape our lives, those which we have spoken aloud and those which we carry in silence, in the quiet and tender corners of our hearts. In these difficult days, we often find ourselves overwhelmed by the challenges in our world, by the heartache and loss, by the violence and injustice that touches our lives and the lives of those we hold most dear. And even in the face of these sorrows, amidst the grief they bring, we hold on to gratitude for the small, beautiful things that remain, for the bright colors of the changing autumn leaves, for the warm cup of tea on a dark fall morning, for the connection and love we feel when we see an old friend. We delight in these joys even as we mourn our sorrows, and we find comfort and support in the arms of our community, knowing that our joys and sorrows are shared, that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. Spirit of life, as we move through the days and weeks ahead, may we remember to ask for help when we need it and to offer help when we can. May we hold fast to the spirit of love in this community, and may that love grant us courage and comfort. And as we move through the world with all of its uncertainty, may our time together remind us of the two things that are still certain: that we are all worthy of love, and that we do not have to go alone. May it be so. Amen. Please remain seated as we sing Spirit of Life. It's hymn number 123 in the gray hymnal. The words will also appear on the screen. Our reading this morning comes from the pagan and Bay Area activist Starhawk, who writes, "We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned, we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free." Now, please join me in a moment of reflection, followed by our post-reflection music, which will be familiar to many, the Great Pumpkin Waltz by Vince Guaraldi. Thank you, Brian. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. We're moving today. I'm so scared, God. I've never lived anywhere but here. Suppose I hate my new school. Suppose everybody there hates me. Please help me, God. Don't let New Jersey be too horrible. Thank you. These are the opening lines of Judy Blume's beloved 1970 coming-of-age novel, aptly titled, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. The book, which experienced a renaissance last year after being adapted into a blockbuster movie, tells the story of an 11-year-old girl named Margaret as she faces the trials and tribulations of adolescence and growing up in the New Jersey suburbs. In addition to the usual preteen concerns about fitting in at a new school and making friends, Margaret also has questions about faith. Raised outside of organized religion by a Jewish father and a Christian mother, Margaret yearns for religious identity, but she doesn't quite know where she belongs. Throughout the novel, she visits churches and synagogues to try and gain answers about her place in the world. She also engages in regular conversational-style prayers with God about everything from puberty to school dances. Many of her prayers are like this one. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I can't wait until our school dance starts. Do you think I'll get Philip Leroy for a partner? It's not so much that I like him as a person, God, but as a boy, he's very handsome. And I'd love to dance with him just once or twice. Thank you, God. While middle school dances are undeniably an important part of Margaret's existential concerns, in the book, her prayers cover topics well beyond just the social challenges of the 6th grade. She also asks God for clarity on her spiritual journey as she learns more about Judaism and Christianity. Margaret experiences an ongoing feeling of uncertainty and doubt about organized religion, making prayers like the following. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I've been to church. I didn't feel anything special in there, God, even though I wanted to. I'm sure it has nothing to do with you. Next time, I'll try harder. Next time, I'll try harder. These words make me emotional every time I read them and hear in Margaret's voice her sense of personal responsibility and guilt. I imagine that some of us here this morning have had similar experiences of going into a church and not feeling anything special, even when we thought we should. Margaret's feelings of doubt and confusion are as relatable as her desire for belonging. By the end of the novel, Margaret still hasn't arrived at any easy answers about organized religion. Author Judy Blume resists providing a tidy conclusion to her theological inquiry, choosing instead to end the story in a place of ongoing ambivalence. As she comes of age, Margaret realizes that many of life's big questions simply do not have straightforward answers. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is just one of many popular stories about a young person engaged in a journey of self-discovery that we often call coming of age. Usually, these coming-of-age stories follow a protagonist during their transition from adolescence into young adulthood, as they face moral quandaries and personal challenges and learn, perhaps for the first time, to take responsibility for the direction of their own lives. In our culture, there are no shortage of these stories in literature and film. From classic novels like Louisa May Alcott's Little Women and J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, to beloved movies like Grease and The Breakfast Club, we have countless representations of young people struggling to find themselves as they discover the great joys and challenges of being human, love and loss, belonging and loneliness. Whether you're immersed in the antics of Meg, Joe, Beth, and Amy in Alcott's orchard house, or engrossed by Danny Zuko and Sandy Olson falling in love on a beach on a long summer night, these stories transport you to a time of possibility and promise, a time when life seems up for grabs and anything is possible. Perhaps that's why we continue to love these stories even as we become much older than their main characters. They remind us of how it felt to see the future as something wide open, to have the luxury of time stretching out endlessly ahead of us, to be more concerned with life's beginning than with its end. We all have our own versions, although maybe slightly less cinematic, of these beloved coming-of-age stories, of the moments in our youth that transformed the way we saw the world. In my own life, one of these moments occurred when I was just a few years older than Margaret, when I was 13, living a little south of here in the town of Portland, Oregon. It was a sunny morning in the springtime, and the cherry trees downtown were in full bloom when I first walked into a Unitarian Universalist church. Until that Sunday, I had been attending a local Protestant church where I'd just participated in the confirmation class for middle schoolers. Did anyone here participate in a confirmation class growing up? It's not just me? Okay. This class, meant to affirm my commitment to the church and its teachings, culminated in a service where we all stood in front of the church and professed our belief in its doctrine. While I loved the community that I found in the church, much like Judy Blume's Margaret, I also felt uncomfortable accepting the dogma it prescribed. After all, how was I supposed to know what I really thought about God or the Holy Trinity at the age of 13? In that church, I felt pressure to profess a kind of certainty of faith that no matter how much I prayed about it, I simply could not find. It was just by chance that not long after I went through confirmation in my Protestant church, I walked through the doors of a Unitarian Universalist one on the one Sunday a year when that church celebrated its own youth in a coming-of-age service. During that service, kids who were about my age stood up in front of the congregation to talk about their beliefs and values. But unlike the Protestant church where I had just had my confirmation class, there was no commitment to one single creed. Instead, each youth in the UU church read a statement of values that they had personally authored. One stood up and talked about how they didn't believe in God, but rather in the power of community. Another talked about how they believed in many gods and in the possibility of reincarnation. Others stood up and talked about how they didn't know what they believed, but were excited to keep exploring. After each middle schooler stood in front of the congregation, they received a warm round of applause from a community of adults who celebrated them just as they were, for the diversity of their beliefs and for their questions. I was stunned. A religious community that not only tolerated but celebrated theological diversity, where atheists, humanists, agnostics, and theists sat side by side, a place where people were committed to liberal social values and ongoing spiritual exploration. Immediately, I was hooked. And not just because the donuts during coffee hour were particularly delicious, although that certainly did not hurt. On that Sunday, at 13, I felt that I had found a new spiritual home. And in the decades that have followed, Unitarian Universalism has remained my spiritual home because of its capacity to honor the questions and to support my own spiritual evolution. As I've moved between atheism, agnosticism, and theism over the years, I've never had to fear that I no longer belong. I know there is a place for me here, not despite, but because of my questions. And that has been tremendously comforting because it turns out, unfortunately, that adult life raises a lot more questions than it answers. While I naively hoped that coming of age happened only once, it turns out that it happens over and over and over again throughout the course of a life. As adults, we can change careers, move cities, fall in love, fall out of love, make new friends, create families, lose loved ones, suffer pain and illness, and change our beliefs about everything from religion to politics. All of these experiences have the potential to transform us on a fundamental level, to alter the way we understand who we are, what we care about, and how we want to be in the world. While the vast array of literary and cinematic representation might have us believe otherwise, coming of age isn't solely a project of youth after all. Nor is it one singular moment or event. It turns out that we are all always coming of age. And this coming of age, this maturation into fuller and more authentic versions of ourselves, happens not only on an individual level, but also on a communal one. As time passes, families, towns, schools, and churches evolve to respond to the changing world around them. Recently, the Unitarian Universalist Association, known as the UUA, the national organization that supports Unitarian Universalist churches around the United States, has been undergoing a kind of institutional coming of age, as it's engaged in a process of amending the organizational bylaws that outline its core values. Now, although organizational bylaws might understandably not sound particularly exciting or interesting, the section of the bylaws that were amended this year, Article 2 to be exact, is the section that articulates the principles and purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and it communicates a lot about our shared values. Have some folks here heard about Article 2? Yes, I imagine this has been discussed at length. While there's no one doctrine that all Unitarian Universalists share, our National Association of Congregations does espouse shared values to which congregations can voluntarily choose to ascribe. And in recent years, proponents of racial justice and Unitarian Universalism have led the movement to amend the bylaws to clarify our organizational commitment to the work of social justice. After a multi-year-long process of research and drafting and soliciting feedback, a bylaw revision committee proposed a final draft of the new bylaws at the annual Unitarian Universalist General Assembly this past June. 80% of Assembly delegates voted to approve the amendments, far more than the 2/3 that were required. The language of the new bylaws identifies 7 shared values of member UUA congregations: justice, generosity, pluralism, transformation, equity, interdependence, and love. According to these new bylaws, love is the value that's at the center of these 6 other principles, sustaining the work of interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity. Prior to the vote at General Assembly in June, Reverend Victoria Safford shared a reflection on these changes to the bylaws, saying, "However we vote, we put love at the center, unflinching, insistent. This free faith we so cherish reveres the past and trusts the dawning future more. We believe in evolution, unfolding always, not unraveling, and in revelation that is not sealed." Reverend Safford's words capture so much of what I love about Unitarian Universalism: the shared commitment to spiritual growth, with love always at its center, unflinching and insistent. Her words remind us that this has always been a living and breathing tradition. Now, these bylaw revisions have not come without concerns about what might be lost by amending the old language around our values. Some have expressed a feeling of connection to the old language of the UUA principles outlined in our prior bylaws and feel understandable sadness at the changes to that language. But I feel compelled to trust in the wisdom of the Unitarian Universalists from around the country who thoughtfully spent years reviewing and revising the language of our shared values. Throughout my life, Unitarian Universalism has made room for me to grow and change in my own individual spirituality. It seems only fair that I return the favor and give Unitarian Universalism the opportunity to keep growing as a faith tradition. I want to honor the coming-of-age process of my own church, even when it requires me to let go of the known and embrace something new. I hope that this process of revising and honing our values language is something that happens throughout my lifetime as we continue to grow in community. What I've learned from the UUA bylaw revision process is that adaptability is a spiritual necessity, which helps grant us the fortitude to meet the moment in front of us, even or especially when that moment is the last thing that any of us could have expected. Adaptability is essential because, as it turns out, we are all engaged in this lifelong process of coming of age. And we are all engaged in a lifelong process of responding to the twists and turns that happen in the world around us. In this season, I've been thinking a lot about the new Article 2 value of transformation, which begins with these words: we adapt to a changing world. On weeks like this one, I feel the weight and overwhelm of the changing world now more than ever. And sometimes that overwhelm and the fear that accompanies it makes me feel like hiding under the covers indefinitely. Can anyone else here relate to that feeling this week? In times like these, change feels scary and all-consuming. And as we sang at the beginning of our service, hope can feel hard to find. But the corollary of the scariness of change is that nothing, good or bad, lasts forever. More change is always promised, and we get to play a part, even if it is small, in determining what kind of change happens next. While we cannot control everything in the coming-of-age process of our country, our world, or even our own lives, we do get to make choices about how we respond and how we keep on going. Our job as Unitarian Universalists in this growing process is to do our best to prioritize the values of justice, generosity, pluralism, transformation, equity, and interdependence as we move through the world. Our job is to keep centering love, even in moments of uncertainty when we aren't sure what comes next. And so, as we move through this season of our lives, may we do our best to meet change with courage and resilience. As we continue to come of age, may we be gentle and compassionate with ourselves and with others and with all that we do not yet know. And may we remember, even in the times when we feel overwhelmed and afraid, that we do not go alone, but are journeying alongside a community of others, of chosen family and friends who are also working to center love in a world that could not possibly need it more. May it be so. Amen. Please rise in body or in spirit to sing our closing hymn. It's number 298 in Singing the Living Tradition, Wake Now My Senses. The words will also be on the screens. You may be seated. After the service is over today, please exit through the foyer. Coffee and tea will be served out there, and you are welcome to bring your beverage and snacks back into the sanctuary as you wish to join together in fellowship and connect with those around you. And another announcement and reminder, from 12 to 2, we will have the Starting Point Session 3, Deep Listening, here in the sanctuary, and we'll be rearranging some of the chairs into a circle. So if you find yourself here around noon, you may be conscripted into helping make a circle with the chairs. And now, our closing words as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the warmth of this community. That warmth we carry with us until we meet again. May we go out from our time together this morning, comforted and inspired by the knowledge that whatever we face, we do not go alone, and that we are held always by the love and connection we've found here. Our service begins when the service ends. Go in peace, practice love. Amen.